Video games have been used as a scapegoat in our culture for almost as long as they've existed. Ironically, it seems to be common within intellectual circles to believe that video games are largely a waste of time and that they somehow rot your brain. As a person who was raised on these games and now makes them myself, I'm becoming more and more frustrated with these baseless arguments and would like to present the tremendous positive influence of video games on human psychology, as well as the very bright potential of the art medium. We've all heard the concern from parents that their child spends far too much time playing video games. While a balanced lifestyle is very important, this argument is often coupled with the belief that video games are somehow a waste of time. This is erroneous because it misses the point that fun and learning are closely related. There's a genuine joy when a young child learns how to walk, speak, or act out one of the myriad of deep, complex psychological traits that makes us human. Most good parents know not to interfere with this process, simply because nature isn't stupid. The child walks when it needs to, and the whole process is blissful. Human beings will learn important skills as they grow the capacity for them. Some of these skills are on a very gross level, like walking and speaking, and some of them are on a more subtle level, like building decision strategies. Assuming that a child is going to enjoy a video game and not get anything out of it is a mistake, because it misses that fundamental point. The child, of course, is learning. So what is it learning? Let's take a very simple example that everyone will understand. Super Mario Bros. In Mario, you navigate a little guy through a very simple, abstract world. For starters, the simplicity of the world creates an excellent opportunity for breaking down concepts into simple, easy-to-understand chunks. We start by moving our little character forward and are confronted by an enemy. This creates the necessity for a decision. The player can hop on the enemy to destroy it, or they can choose to avoid it. Interacting with this very simple object teaches the child a little bit about their character and the world that they're in, while saving room for more complex interactions later. Also, if the child makes a mistake, they are punished extremely lightly. They have to start again at the beginning of the area, and 1 turn out of 3 is crossed out. In this way, a child can learn how to navigate in the world of decision-making without experiencing a tremendous amount of pain from his or her mistakes, making the iteration process miles faster. Complex patterns start to emerge after just a short amount of time into the game. In this example, we'll use a more recent game called Braid. Here, we have a scene with an enemy and a reward item just out of reach. If the child is clever and has already learned that she can bounce off enemies, she will do so to obtain the reward. Although this example is simple, more complex patterns are starting to suggest themselves here. For example, the child is beginning to learn that the decisions she's making might become better decisions if she takes the environment into consideration. When a decision needs to be made, multiple components need to be considered, and depending on the complexity of the problem, one's ability to take as many of these components into consideration as possible might be a defining factor in a successful decision. This is not always the case, however. Sometimes simpler decisions based on simple criteria are important. If I walked into a Chinese food restaurant and wanted to order something by scanning the entire menu, I'd be there all day. In a video game, we can create situations that simulate this issue as well, not only giving the child 2 decision strategies, but also teaching them that sometimes there's a time to use one strategy and sometimes there's a time to use another, all in the span of 5 minutes. It's worth pointing out here that a huge value of video games is that they do work on a very unconscious level. Because the child is learning by doing, strategies like the ones I listed above are learned incredibly quickly. If a failure is made, the punishment is quick and painless, but clear, and the rewards are positive and pleasant. As a good game progresses, it can take multiple behavioral patterns and combine them, creating more and more complex situations. Let's look at a simple example where these patterns can be applied. This is Maya, which is a 3D art program that many game designers use to build the visual components of our video games. Needless to say, it's a complex program that can be a little intimidating to new users, especially those who don't know much about computers. So let's take some of the patterns that are prevalent in video games and put them to use. What we have here is a massive amount of components, none of which we understand. That being said, we can apply one of the above learnings, that the usefulness of each component of any system is best defined in relationship to other components. In this way, we can go about exploring each component and understanding how it relates to everything else. We do this with a related strategy, by scanning the interface and looking for what is most immediately novel and important. Simple instruction can help point out this stuff as well. Also, we don't need to learn each component in its entirety before we can use it. Remember when we killed that first enemy in Mario, but we didn't yet know that we could bounce off of it to reach higher places? The components of many systems are similar. In this way, we can take a little bit of knowledge and begin to operate, at least ineffectively, very quickly. All we need to know about Maya is a few components and how they interact. As we learn more components, our understanding of those components, as well as the whole picture, will begin to clarify, but that's just a matter of time. This learning strategy has rewarded me with a good amount of success in my industry, as I generally learn complex technical problems faster than most folks. Being able to quickly scan an interface for novelty and retain useful information while deleting garbage is one of the most important skills I learned from video games as a child. The examples I've given here are simple and few, but rest assured there are many other thought patterns expressed in video games. Interactivity in games is excellent, but it's worth mentioning that video games are also capable of containing story, which is arguably one of the more important elements of human learning. Unlike simpler forms of media, however, video game story can exist either in the form of something the user watches, like a brief movie, in the form of in-game events, like characters interacting with the player in meaningful ways during gameplay, or even in the form of the abstract gameplay itself, gameplay mechanics and behavior on the player's part that might unfold in a specific order, implying a narrative. That's pretty rare, though. Video games might not be perfect, but we need to throw away this myth that they're somehow stupid and embrace the truth. Video games have incredible positive potential, and we should be exploring that with consciousness. To keep an eye on our search for something better, you can visit our company website at greenergrassgames.com. Feel free to email us if you're interested in exploring the positive potential of video games. For more psychological stuff like this, visit my website at thought-patterns.com. Thanks a lot.